Okay, hello, hello, hello. This is day 5. So, my name is Ebony, and this is DMT, Expresso that. 15 minutes less on the topic that's trendy and trendy on my heart and mind. And well, as I stated, it's day 5, and welcome to Black History Month. Today, I am talking about the tale of two characters and colorism in black sitcoms. I will be focusing in on Harriet, Winslow, and Vivian Banks. There's always been kind of this controversy, right? Light skin versus dark skin. The debate of color. But what I really want to focus in on is kind of what was really prevalent as you get to the early 2000s. It's well known that the original character that played both Vivian Banks and Harriet Winslow were in effect replaced by light-skinned actresses. And there's always this question of why. So I'm going to spend a little time today talking about Harriet Winslow first, right? Family Matters kind of came first in this matter. Very well documented history. Talk about Harriet Winslow, the character, the two actresses that play them, and then jump into I think it's a more controversial role, and Vivian Banks, and then I'm going to give an honorable mention, and so it's a little surprise. So strap in, let's go. All right, so we're going to start talking about Family Matters. Very influential show. Family Matters ran on ABC, debuted on ABC September 22nd, 1989, and ended on May 9th, 1997, before it was moved to CBS. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about the CBS time. That is kind of where you draw the delineation. 1997 and on is kind of where you get that delineation going into the 9 seasons. So Family Matters did last 9 seasons, had a number of episodes, 215 of them, and you had some pretty awesome actresses and actors we mostly know Steve Urkel, which fantastic, but that was not what the show was originally built on. It was originally centered around the matron, the mom, Harriet Winslow. Harriet Winslow, such an influential character, and so most people don't know that Harriet Winslow, the character, was originally on Perfect Strangers, which was another show featuring cousins Larry and Balky. So again, go back and watch those, because actually Perfect Strangers was actually pretty freaking funny. But Harriet was actually an elevator operator in the building of these two cousins. And she became, when they talked about this spin-off of doing Family Matters, they brought that character over. And then they developed this show around her and her family. So this is where you get the basis. Think about, this is running around the same time as the Cosby Show, but what was so influential about Family Matters is that they were just every working day people. Not to say that the Cosby Show wasn't, but it seemed a little more relatable to everyday people, right? Harriet was this they didn't show much of her job when they actually moved over to Family Matters, but she was this elevator operator. Her husband played as a police officer, Carl, and then they had their 3 children, Eddie, Laura, and Judy. Then you've got, Aunt Rachel, you've got Estelle, Mother Winslow, and the next door neighbor, Steve Urkel. Now, the actress that actually played Harriet Winslow, her name is Jo Marie Payton. So Jo Marie Payton is the original Mrs. Winslow. She is Harriet Winslow. She embodied that character. She owned it all the way up through this transition. And so this is where we start talking about some of the issues that happen. Jo Marie Payton had actually, even before the transition from ABC to CBS in that last season, She was already ready to leave 2 seasons before that. Um, CBS brought some issues on its own. They wanted to switch direction of the show. They moved time slots, and so you have like basically behind the scenes issues that are occurring. But what was most notable in those last episodes in that last season was that Harriet Winslow had been changed. It was almost like the chemistry was off. So in the final 9 episodes, you did get a new Harriet Winslow that was played by Julianne Elder. So Julianne Elder, you heard comments like there's no chemistry between them. Why did they bring in this light skinned girl? Like what was going on? And so you actually start to see Harriet Winslow fade to the background. It was almost like she was just no more. And then you get the focus mainly around Steve and Laura and getting engaged, and you knew it was kind of ending, right? So this is kind of what you set the backdrop for. Family Matters was the heart and soul of it, was Jo Marie Payton. It was based on this character. That character spun it off. I know eventually we get the evolving role of Steve Urkel, but if you know the backdrop for which the show was kind of taken and spun off, Harriet was a big part of that, and I think we forget it. And so that last season seemed, even to me, really lackluster. And I can understand while it might even probably seem weird that Julianne Elder was brought in, and it was different. Noticeably different. Now, a little bit about Julianne Elder. I do remember her playing Nadine Waters on the show Martin, and most noticeably, she was the second Harriet Winslow. But Julianne Elder has quite the portfolio herself, and I do remember her being on Star Trek. And we would say color doesn't matter, but it's noticeable. My goodness. I don't even know how to articulate it out really much about the real difference. But you saw it. It was just very different. That's what I'll call it, because I will address the rest of that later. Okay, let's jump into this. So I don't have to really give you the background on Fresh Prince of Bel Air because, well, guess what? The theme song tells you everything you need to know. You got a guy from Philly moving out to the high side of life and moving in with some family members. So this show, more than slightly different than the Family Matters, but it's still focused on the black family. You've got, this more affluent family members than you saw in Family Matters, but none of the same. What was very fantastic and interesting about the family was that their dynamics. They were so real to life to me. And that's what I enjoyed about at least those first 3 seasons of The Fresh Prince of Bel Air, was because every single person kind of had their own personality about them. Particularly because I like the fact that they showed Aunt Vivian Banks, Will's aunt, as just this formidable woman, this professor, this worker, this woman of integrity, and the way she spoke. Janet Hubert embodied at that point in time Vivian Banks, and then watching her alongside Uncle Phil, Vivian, they were they just clicked. And so I think those that were talking about the colorism of it all, when they brought in the second Aunt Viv, they call it Aunt Viv 2.0, but this was between the 3rd and 4th season. Janet Hubert was moved on from, and uh, you got the new Aunt Viv that was played by Daphne Maxwell Reid. So Daphne Maxwell Reid, another actress again with her own portfolio, and I feel like she got a lot more hate from this change. Like she was the person that made this change, but you could tell something was slightly amiss about the new Aunt Viv, right? It was like they didn't necessarily care about this character anymore, and that was the marked difference. Aunt Viv kind of drifted to the background. You didn't hear too much about her having a job anymore. When you saw her, she was always in the house, and Aunt Viv just became less memorable. And I and again, I'm going to talk about this again, about the similarities about this. It it was just very different. That's what I keep saying. It's just different. Um, so kind of mention why Harriet Winslow left. So in this case, I now want to tell you why Janet Hubert was no longer a cast member on the show. Was they were talking about the personality conflicts between her and the other cast members, and so basically did not come back. She did not come back. They recasted her, and they recasted her differently. This has been an ongoing controversy. People, I mean, you'll have the other cast member saying something about her, and it's her personality was the real issue. On the other hand, Hubert states that Will Smith and his personality, he was the issue. But that's beside the point. We lost our dark-skinned sisters, the originals, right? Those 2.0s for lighter-skinned women. Now, what are the similarities, really? Similarities between both of them, both Harriet Winslow and Aunt Viv, was that those original casted members seem to have a personality. The women had I want to say they were more fully functional characters. You knew their style of dress, right? They taught you lessons, right? The original actresses taught you lessons. They were mama, right? Those women had jobs. It seemed that they had a life outside the home, and they had jobs. And that was the big differences, right, between the dark-skinned characters, light-skinned characters. And I don't know if this was just a move based on changing direction of the shows, but it's telling, because you saw during what I call the decline of those characters, supposed decline of those characters, was they were very strong in personality, strong in presence, and they actually made a different tone to the show. Now, biggest differences and why there's some flack that mostly, right? I say mostly, there seems to be a lot more hate to Daphne Reid as Aunt Viv 2.0. Again, I think Janet Hubert played that part so damn well that it was very hard to just kind of say, she's gone, so hey, Aunt Viv 2.0, you're not going to have little Nikki, you'll come in sometimes, but the presence wasn't there anymore. There were people that say, Aunt Viv ain't had no personality anymore, and you gotta, in some ways, I believe that was the writers that was stifling that character. So Aunt Viv didn't have really this personality or presence anymore. They even changed how Aunt Viv had dressed. So this is for both of those characters of the new Harriet Winslow, the new Aunt Viv 2.0. Uh, like they look like they could have been on the Golden Girls, right? The patterns, they were a little more drab in dress, and if you put them into contention with their predecessors, I mean, let's be real here. Aunt Viv used to bring it. She was. I don't know. She used to wear her purples, those power suits, get that hair did, and it was a certain authority and regalness about her. Um, Aunt Viv would tell you like it is, and it was almost in the ways of a Clara Huxtable, right? She would read you your rights and teach you uh, a life lesson. And the kids called her yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. There was these courtesies and respect, and she was very verbal and outspoken about it. That's Aunt Viv 1.0. We didn't get that really anymore. It was almost like James Avery was the became more of that figure in their life to give them those life lessons. After 1.0 left, those 2.0s didn't seem to have a job. I know that there was a lot of people that just believed that, hey, they're stay-at-home moms. They didn't have no job, right? In the words of, like, right, Tommy Strong, man, you ain't got no job. What I think irked a lot of people, especially from the fresh perspective, is because you knew Aunt Viv had a role, a life, dreams, aspirations, things she wanted to do outside the home. And then what did we get? She take care of little Nicky. Just, and I think the final nail in the coffin for Daphne Reed when it came to this Aunt Viv role was that dance scene, that unitard. There was multiple moments that they had given Aunt Viv 1.0 that, my goodness, that people still talk about that today. People are still wearing those outfits as Halloween outfits. Those originals, Aunt Viv 1.0, Harry Winslow 1.0, were phenomenal and formidable women. And so you're like, well, is this a characterization of light-skinned women to dark-skinned women? I think that's a real question to be had, right? It just brings questions, right, to bear. What it makes me really wonder, what were they saying? Do you blame the networks a little bit for these things, right? So questions that came up, and I remember this being in school, and I was in high school during this time frame, was about colorism, about why move to a light-skinned Aunt Viv, like there were no other actresses that were of the same complexion as the 1.0s for both shows. Why are they so meek? Why did these characters become such a background wallpaper than what they were? And I think the biggest question, and that was the biggest question really, was why bringing these light-skinned Aunt Vibs that have no personality, have nothing to bring to the show, and who cares? Who cared about that character after the 1.0s were gone? I don't know. We would have to ask those executives, those people in charge, because I honestly think there was a disservice to these characters toward the end. Both to the actresses that had to portray them, both to not even really doing an introduction to them, really. I don't know. I don't even know how you really sprinkle in new actresses. I mean, they do it all the time in daytime television, right? Young and the Restless, Days of Our Lives, they sprinkle in, like, you might have a character that has the same name and they're gone, and they somehow manages to bring back the character, and you're like, hey, that's a different person because this person's been on the show for like 50 years, but they somehow managed to work it out that the transition, there was no transition. I think that's what the big issue is. There's no transition between the 1.0s, 2.0s, and it was so abrupt and so staggering how the networks did to these characters. I think that was the biggest shock, besides the skin tone, was this. So I want to know what you think. The Aunt Vivs, did you like the darker skin ones, the 1.0s versus the 2.0s? Do you think there was colorism involved in the picking of the replacements? Because it happened on both shows, on both of them. So you gotta think about, this is almost even around the same time frame. So we're talking, what, 97, 98? 1996 is kind of when the other one ends. So this isn't in a vacuum. This is a whole bunch of things are happening. But this is also around the time where you saw almost that decline of the black sitcom coming out of the late 90s, early 2000s. That TGI Friday, those notable names, it just wasn't the same. So just something to think about. So I'm going to do an honorable mention. For... Okay, so I told you I would do an honorable mention. And no, this is not the tale of two characters, but it is talking about that spectrum that you saw of light skin versus dark skin, and I'm bringing you back to Martin. So why do you say, well, why are you talking about Martin and colorism and all this stuff? Well, I'll tell you why. Because Gina, played by Tisha Campbell, was a light-skinned actress, playing that supporting lead role as Martin's girlfriend / wife, significant other. And then you had that friend, and Pam, trust me, is that friend, played by Tashina Arnold. And people that don't know the history behind them, and I think we didn't talk too often about colorism between those two characters because they were already friends. They're like real life best friends, and that is so cool. I remember before even seeing Tisha Campbell in House Party, I remember her and Tisha Arnold being in Little Shop of Horrors. So I knew that they had a relationship prior to Martin, and so it was very cool to see them both together portraying themselves as best friends. There was no real change at all. So why bring it up? Well, because I remember there actually being questions when I was younger, and you start seeing the first parts of the show of, well, why is it that Martin has this adversarial relationship with Pam? And why gotta be the dark-skinned sister? Why this? Why that? Why do we have to portray the dark-skinned sister as a loud and verbose and whatever, right? And Gina was, well, Gina. Again, I think it was different, and I'm gonna tell you why. That one, those characters, those people just seem to work. That was one where I was like, I don't really, I get it, right? I don't really see the colorism in that casting. I think a big part of that was because Martin had a previous working relationship with Tisha Campbell from the movie, oh wow, I just lost it that quick, from the movie, oh, and I just said it, House Party, wow, from the movie House Party. They already had a previous relationship, so, and no, not that type of relationship that was being hinted at in those last seasons, but a working relationship, and so that's something to keep in mind. So where Martin and Pam's interactions colorism? Is it? Was it colorism? Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I personally don't think it was. I think they had already casted Gina for what she was, and that play between those two characters just worked. There was chemistry there as a couple. I tend to like, just from a relationship standpoint, that they didn't. She was another character that was different, right? Her portrayal was different than the other women of darker complexion. There was just something different about Pam that was different than any other character that was being played that was of a darker complexion. And I know she might have come off angry. I know she came off as this as loud and everything else that you want to throw on it, and stereotype of a darker skinned black woman. I don't like that, man. I mean, I don't think there was colorism between them. I think Pam was strong. I know that many people fell in love with Pam, right? If it wasn't her hair, she had a fashion sense about her. She had a confidence about her. I mean, heck, if she had to embody the angry black woman stereotype, it seems she only used it when needed, right? Take away that adversarial relationship with Martin. I mean, she was well loved by a lot of people. Thing was, she was ambitious. She had dreams. You knew Pam for Pam, and she was actually a complex character that people came to love in her own right. People loved, like, I think that was the biggest difference, is you had these two characters in juxtaposition, and it wasn't just that they let them all kind of hang to the winds. Pam was Pam, Gina was Gina, and so Pam, as a black female protagonist, as a woman that's strong-willed, she was poised, and she was just very willing to show her anger. I think that was a really big difference. She, while angry, she wasn't one of those bitter women. She would raise her voice if she needed to. She wasn't just going to let you walk over her. And I think that was the biggest difference for Pam. She knew herself, she knew her, and that what drew me to both those characters, Gina and Pam, is because they were both career women looking for, right? Gina had her relationship. Pam was trying to get hers, right? And I think that was the joke. Pam couldn't get a man, besides the BBs and everything else that they would make jokes about her. But she was a firecracker. She was feminine. She was confident. She was considered sexy. But what was, to me, very telling about Tichina Arnold as Pam was that she had this dignity and grace and demanded respect. And so, do I think there was overall colorism in Martin? I don't personally think so. We often see a lot of I don't even want to say create problems where there isn't one. But this is one of the shows that I think that people are trying to create problems where there isn't one. Pam and Gina, Tisha and Tichina were both best friends, and so I don't even think it came down to skin tone for them in this case. But we can infer other things. Tell me what you think about the character of Pam, the character of Harriet Winslow, the character of Aunt Viv 2.0, 1.0, whatever. I'd love to hear everything that you have to say. But I'm going to end it here. As always, I'm sending peace, love, positivity, and good vibes. Peace.